everyone, it's Bretta Riches from runforefoot.com, and today I'm going to discuss more proof that cushioned traditional running shoes may alter or even impair running mechanics in a way that could result in greater impact loads. A 2014 study published in the Journal of Sports, Health, and Sciences investigated the effects of cushioned running shoes versus thin minimalist running sandals on lower leg mechanics during running in the Tarahumara runners. The Tarahumara runners, also known as the Romari, are a part of the Tarahumara Indians, a tribe that lives in a very remote part of northwestern Mexico. The Tarahumara runners are renowned for their long tradition of running ultra-long distances, at least 75 kilometers on a regular basis, I might add. And they run over all kinds of uneven, rocky, tricky terrain, but they also do so wearing thin, flimsy rubber sandals referred to as Huarache sandals. These sandals virtually have no corrective or supportive features, no squishy, soft compressible underfoot padding or cushioning because of the minimalistic construction of the Huaraches. The Huaraches may naturally increase nerve stimulation in the foot, which links up to the reflexes in the leg, priming the leg to reflexively react and respond with greater mechanical efficiency to avoid harmful impact production. Therefore, the Huarache sandals may provoke safer running mechanics, which are less impulsive, less forceful, which enables the Tarahumara runners to take on the barriers of endurance running with greater ease, with less injury, because it becomes clearly evident that these runners must be always working to ensure to deliver useful, safe landing strategies during running at the reflexive level to reduce burdensome impact forces. Because of this, the Tarahumara runners are of special interest to many researchers because these runners really represent a major achievement of minimalist running. That is, running with very minimal protection on the bottom of the feet. From their ability to run incredibly long distances with wearing very little on their feet, the Tarahumara runners may serve as a model in terms of displaying more optimal running mechanics from which we can potentially learn from. Since these runners run impressive distances in sandals and barely get injured at the rate and severity to that of runners who wear traditional type running shoes for running, in this way, it is strongly believed and accepted by many researchers that running long distances in rubber sandals is not consequential for the Tarahumara runners because their feet specifically are operating at a higher level, both sensory and mechanically, because of the lack of underfoot protection. These runners also learn to adaptively and naturally adjust their footfall patterns and lower leg mechanics during running to essentially lighten the load of running. Since they run with very little cushioning on their feet, they essentially need to make their own mechanical adjustments to make running more comfortable. But what happens to the mechanics of the Tarahumara runners if they run in traditional cushioned running shoes? As I was saying, a 2014 study published in the Journal of Sport Health Sciences, which I'll link below, set out to see if traditional running shoes, which are thick cushioned running shoes, would really help the Tarahumara runners run better and enable these runners to make even stronger progress at the endurance level. The study found that the Tarahumara runners who habitually wore regular traditional cushioned running shoes, these runners did not organize their lower leg mechanics in the same order as the Tarahumara runners who habitually ran in sandals. Both groups of runners had way different lower leg mechanics and leg swing motions or trajectories during running. More specifically, the researchers discovered that the Tarahumara runners who ran in Huarache sandals showed less overstriding during running, meaning that their foot struck the ground during running, their ankle landed below the knee as compared with the Tarahumara runners who ran wearing traditional running shoes. These runners, of course, tended to overstride in traditional running shoes during running. Is overstriding a very bad thing in running? When you overstride during running, There are cascade effects in terms of impact generation, and the association of overstriding during running and running related injuries are strong. When a runner overstrides, the ankle tends to land way ahead of the knee joint when the foot strikes the ground. And this positional arrangement of the lower leg during overstriding when running may be a mechanical hazard because it is linked to high brake forces and a high brake force duration period, which means that when you overstride during running, you may come to a forceful dead stop at each step for a longer period of time, which can have profound ripple effects on the body because there seems to be a greater volume of impact and compressive forces on your joints, particularly the knee joint. If you overstride too much when you run, as compared to a runner that doesn't overstride. Comparatively, a runner who doesn't overstride during running has reduced distance between the upper body, which is where most of the body's mass is concentrated when you run, and initial foot strike position. So it's a more compact way to run, which shaves off the duration of braking. And when you don't overstride during running, the ankle of the landing foot lands closely to under the knee and the hips. Ultimately, when you don't overstride during running, there is less physical forces that causes you to decelerate or stop abruptly. And thus you have a more continuous flow of forward momentum because you glide better with the ground. And this is how the Tarahumara runners who wore the Huarache sandals, these runners ran with less abrupt stoppage compared to the Tarahumara runners who ran in traditional running shoes, who again tended to overstride with excessive overstriding. There may be greater inefficient impact production. A lot of research argues that overstriding during running is not really the most mechanically safe and sustainable way to run to help avoid injury, because often when a runner overstrides during running, they actually typically heel strike. So what that means is that they land with their heel first. Doing so generates a destabilizing spike in impact and may cause more impact to spread over the body, which running long distances could translate to muscle injury. But that was not the case for the Tarahumara runners who ran in sandals, because the lack of underfoot padding helps direct motions and mechanical measures of the leg and feet during running that forces these runners to favor a smoother engagement with the ground. In this way, when there is less underfoot protection, the motor cortex in the brain, which is the area of the brain that directs movement, sets a strategy for a movement of the legs and feet that would act as a natural reflexive form of cushioning, prompting safer mechanical movements like a shortened stride, thereby reducing the brake force period. So again, there is less abrupt stop and go of the body with the ground, delivering immediate impact reduction. The data clearly demonstrated that the Tarahumara runners who ran in sandals tended to run better in terms of executing good mechanics, as compared to the Tarahumara runners who ran in traditional cushion running shoes. These good mechanical practices associated with running in minimalistic sandals may be related to injury-free running. Furthermore, the findings of the study also revealed that the Tarahumara runners who habitually ran in cushioned running shoes had reduced arch strength, suggesting that cushion running shoes do not always bring your arch health and function to scale and may cause arch weakness to flourish over time. In contrast, the data also implies that wearing less external arch support may be the best door that opens for opportunity to improve arch health, simply because less support on the arch really puts the foot muscles to work, providing a more sufficient strengthening experience where the foot muscles are more reactive and more responsive in a more natural environment. This evidence also bolsters the case that minimalist footwear may help remedy arch weakness or collapsed arches because of the lack of underfoot protection and the absence of arch support. In the Huarache sandals, for example, force the feet to work at a higher level, Minimalist running sandals really keep the feet functional. Less protection stimulates the flow of greater muscular engagement within the foot, and over time, the allocation of added mechanical and physical demands on the foot fiercely strengthens and renews arch function and arch height profile as compared with wearing cushioned running shoes with arch support. If there is enough data to suggest that minimalist type running shoes may have clinical implications, and therefore the principle that less is more in terms of footwear should be applied to runners with flattened or collapsed arches, because minimalist running shoes and sandals really sets a strategy for making adaptation of the feet to be stronger for running. Minimalistic footwear really does increase muscle commands, providing richer self-strengthening inputs that translate into foot strength breakthroughs, not breakdowns, which gives you new leverage to avoid injury during running. For more information on minimalist versus traditional running shoes, please visit my blog, runforefoot.com, and please subscribe to my YouTube channel. Thank you so much for listening and watching. Have fun out there on the roads. Bye for now.